EDB contributed over 30 patches to Postgres 18. We had more people contribute patches to the Postgres 18 release than for any other Postgres release in EDB's history. We have had at least 3 more people contributing this year to this year's release than we did for Postgres 17. And we had 3 first-time patch authors. Those 3 aren't necessarily the same. And I invited you two to speak about the work that we do in and with the community from sort of a high-level perspective. And the idea is to then also, in small settings like this, to talk to some colleagues who have made contributions to this year's release about their specific work. So I feel like a round of introductions is in order. Bruce, do you want to get started?
Hi, I'm Bruce Momjian, core team member, live in Philadelphia. I've been with EDB for 19 years.
Oh, okay, very cool. Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom Kincaid. I'm the Vice President of Database Server Development at Enterprise DB, and I've been in and around Postgres for 15 years.
Awesome. And my name is Floor, based in the Netherlands. I'm a principal program manager at EDB. I work really closely with and within the open source community since forever, starting in the Ruby community. And I'm serving on the Postgres Code of Conduct Committee and the Postgres Europe Diversity Committee as well, where I'll help organize a lot of Postgres events, do a lot of stuff. Generally. So we have a couple of topics that we want to cover today. So let's dive right in with the easiest question, not really. Why do we think it's important to contribute to Postgres? Let's do, Bruce, you answer first, and maybe Tom, you can add to Bruce's answer as well.
In almost every case, companies find that this Postgres train is running so quickly that if they aren't kind of on the train, watching it and sort of being part of that process, they really don't get the full value out of Postgres, because all of a sudden every year there's this huge release that comes out that has a whole bunch of stuff in it. They're kind of blindsided because they haven't been involved. They obviously haven't participated in the process, and they have a lot of catch up to do. In addition, they don't really have any input on how the features were developed. It's possible that they could have made huge contributions with a small amount of effort, just by suggesting some changes, but they never did. And after a couple of years, almost every company realizes, we're good as a company, but this Postgres team is far larger than we are, and it's more lucrative for us to work in that process, to be part of it. Therefore, we can help to shape where things are going. We can give feedback from customers on how new features should work or what features are missing. We can sort of work. We can amplify all of our efforts, because all of a sudden, instead of just doing our own thing, we can now do our own thing in a pool of huge amount of talent, which can help to test and add features to the stuff we've done and polish it up and get it into the release. So I think from a company perspective, there is sort of an amplification of effort that happens when you get involved in an open source community. And that's not obvious right away, but within a couple of years, and pretty much it's between 2 and 4 years for pretty much every company, that they really realize that, hey, this is something we need to be part of. And EDB's obviously been doing that for a very, very long time.
Once we're in the source code, we're working at it, we're understanding it, it really puts us in the best possible position to help our customers. So, as we become the authors, the debuggers, contributors, documenters, whatever it may be, the code and the ecosystem, when customers come with questions, we're in the best possible thing, or somebody in the company is in the best possible position to help them deal with whatever they're doing with. And then the ecosystem grows and adopts, we're in better shape to open ourselves for new business opportunities as we contribute to them, and we're aware of what's happening. And maybe one of the bigger ones is it helps us recruit, retain, and grow top database talent. I mean, as people want to work on Postgres, this is their passion, and many of them would do it without being paid. They can come here, get paid, and do it. And in kind of company culture gives us a culture of giving back, right? We not only giving back to the community, but kind of proliferates throughout the whole company. Helping some of the things we do for social circles, but the way do we treat each other and so forth, as establishing a community. And then finally, as people buy services and products from us, they know that some portion of what they spend with us is going forward to help Postgres grow and the open source effort that they're betting their business on, whatever it is, their transaction processing system, their airline system, whatever it is. They're reinvesting in that as we demonstrate that we continue to contribute.
Yeah, cool. And you mentioned ecosystem. So like it's not only the Postgres project, but also all of like the extensions and the tooling around Postgres, which makes Postgres such an interesting project to begin with. I think that it's so extendable. So we're involved in a couple of those ecosystem projects as well, like a pgAdmin or Cloud Native PG, Warehouse PG, Barman. How are those developed in step with Postgres at EDB?
So pretty much, the ones where, there's things we're involved in, there's things we lead in, so we're very much the leader in pgAdmin and have been for a number of years, although, one of its primary leaders is no longer with EDB, but we try to time that very well with the Postgres releases relative to when it supports it. And then, having features in pgAdmin that complement the features in Postgres. And we've had a few things. So an example of some of the things we're talking about, I'll take is Barman. So Barman is our open source backup tool. It's been around for a number of years, came to EDB through Second Quadrant, but EDB developed the incremental backup feature, block-based incremental backup in Postgres. But having Barman support that on day one, having that Barman community kind of identify, hey, this is something we need to get ahead of and we need to support. And then, being able to provide feedback, in this case, something that'll get fixed in future releases of Postgres about the way it works, and as an outside tool trying to use that feature, but having that interaction and making those interactions visible. So in some cases, it's there's a little bit of a lag, but in the most part, for things like Barman, Cloud Native Postgres, and pgAdmin, we try to complement the release roughly when the community releases have the features to support the new features in the community.
I get this question a lot when I'm talking to customers and conferences, and the classic question is, what's in the Postgres roadmap? Share the roadmap. Just like, okay. So really, the real reality check is that there is no roadmap. That a roadmap is possible when you control resources, and therefore you allocate those resources to what's on your roadmap. The community doesn't have any resources, so we don't have a roadmap. It's really whatever individual companies or mostly individuals want to work on, and then what resonates with the community. So, the first step for them is to ask the community whether their change is desirable, and they have to get through that process. And then they design it. They get approval on, they get feedback on that until nobody complains. Then they finally implement it, test it, and then finally it gets into a release. So, that's the basic flow, but there isn't any gatekeeper. There isn't any deliverables that we would, in fact, we don't even really have, our releases are time-based, so they're not really based on any particular feature or any particular goal that we want to accomplish before the next release comes out. It sounds like it shouldn't work, just like it sounds like open source shouldn't work, but it does, and it does well. So we're gonna stay on that path, I guess.
And we always caveat with the fact that it has to be one accepted by the community. The community has to decide on. So it always carries that risk. Here's some things we've worked on. And the question kind of comes, okay, so how do you choose what you're going to work on and what you're going to contribute? Well, it's almost entirely done by our community members or developers in the community. Obviously, Bruce has been a part of that over the years. Has worked on various patches and various things, and he always works on the release notes and probably a given it at some point. But our other people, other staff members, they ended up, well, boy, I really want to work on. I really hate this full table lock on vacuum. So Alvaro's working on the repack option for Postgres 19. And then, I don't like the way null constraints work because somebody's working on that, and a variety of other things that happen during the course of things. Robert, I'm sick and tired of hearing about, not having block level backup. These are things that, that come up. So that's kind of how it's formulated. Now, one thing that often does come into what developers want to work on when it plays into it is, experiences they've had in supporting our customers. I'm sick and tired of people deleting the log directory or whatever it is, and so let's call it a PG wall or things like that. Or the SRU patch we did in I think that's 17. Is that right, Bruce? That was a direct response to a customer experience, and so there's a variety of different ways it comes into it. So that's, as I would say, it's primarily driven by what our developers want to work on. There is input from what our customers need or what other things happen, but that's generally how it goes.
In any case, it sounds very much like engineers come to you they come with an itch that they want to scratch, and that's what they want to work on. And
yeah, I will say that sometimes the itch is slightly influenced by the customer needs, or maybe even me once in a while, but for the most part, yes. It's
what's interesting is a lot of the what you would call technical debt that, I don't like the way this works, or I'm tired of hearing about this problem, or people are deleting the log file because we named it wrong. These normally would just be overlooked in a commercial setting because they'd be like, we already got too much going on. We're not going to make any more sales if we rename a log directory, if we improve if we make the software a little smoother to use. Normally you would not be able to allocate resources to that unless there's some, major crisis in the company and they decide, we're going to do everything now, But I think in a healthy way, at most of the companies, including EDB, the engineers are really deciding, hey, this is really an area that would improve the user experience. It may not be super flashy. Sometimes it's even hard to explain, I'm sure, to people. But the engineers know that there's a long-term value to that, and that we're willing to invest in that. So it isn't just flashy new features that it's going to look great on the release notes. A lot of times it's little things that have just caused uncomfortableness or confusion in the user base, or have made things a little harder than they should be. And having been at the process now, I guess, as a community for like 29 years now, you do that over and over again, you end up with a really high quality product. So there's a lot of the stuff that even gets greenlighted inside EDB is investment. It's not necessarily super fancy stuff that's everyone's going to be jumping up and down about.
I will say, though, that we're not entirely philanthropic here at EDB. We walk in both worlds, I guess, as many companies do.
Yeah, I think I'd love to hear from you also, Bruce, a little bit. What does a journey of like a release to Postgres look like? So the idea is also like maybe not everybody watching this is intimately familiar with how the Postgres project works and is set up, and what even is a CommitFest, what is mailing list, what is a release candidate, that kind of stuff. So if you could talk through that, that'd be incredibly helpful.
We're definitely in the old school tools camp here in terms of the way we do the release. We look at how other projects do it. I know a lot of projects are sort of based around GitHub and bug trackers but we've looked at those projects and we're not super happy with the outcome in a lot of ways. To us, that process works well with a more centralized development team who's sort of, you assign people to handle bug tracking and you assign people to handle, Git merges and so forth. We obviously developed long before 1996, so long before that any of that technology existed. We do use Git, which we find to be a very useful tool in creating a distributed source tree that pretty much anyone who's a committer can make a change to, and we can easily push those changes everywhere. But the process is a little unusual. People are looking for some central person or some central place where everything happens. That's also not true. There is a variety of email lists, which are basically probably generate about 1,000 emails a week, at least in my understanding. And there are ideas in all those email lists. Sometimes they're related to problems that people are having, right, with null handling, or they deleted their PG wall directory, right, or log. What was it? What do we used to call it? The wall log directory. So we see a lot of that. We see a lot of the problems people are having, and then we have a hackers list, which is pretty much devoted to people who are either working on patches or want to propose patches, or at least want to watch what's happening or get involved in helping with patching and testing and so forth. And that's where most of the development work happens. But again, that all feeds in from the other email lists. It feeds in from obviously experiences that some of our developers have had, people chime in requesting a feature or whatever. And then it's kind of open game. Who's going to work on what things they're going to do? Are they going to make it in this release or not? Are they going to get the patch to finish? It's hard to say. Usually they'll start by asking whether the feature is desirable, and they'll get an up and down usually answer on that. Then they'll look at how they want to implement it. So the sort of design process, how would you go at doing this change? Then, if they've gotten past those two, then they can start to look at implementation and, propose a patch, which we can then test and then review. And it usually will go into something called the CommitFest app, which is a testing framework that we use where developers and committers will go and look for things that are pending, that have been proposed that we can potentially add to this release. I think we have 4 or 5 CommitFests in a given release. And about the beginning of March is where we shut off the last submissions to that last CommitFest. And then we run that usually into April, maybe mid of April. And then we've kind of solidified what's going to be in that release. At that point, we'll potentially put out an alpha. I'll work on the release notes, which takes about a week or two. And those will be done by usually the beginning of May. And that will align with our developer conference, which we have sometime in the month of May. And we'll put out usually a beta 1 sometime toward the middle of May. And then we'll put another beta out in July, and usually another one toward the end of August, beginning of September. And then finally an release candidate in maybe mid-September and a final, maybe by the end of September or early October or something like that. But we will have already started working on the next release in July. So there's an overlap where effectively from July to September, in July, we have started on the next release, and we have also started on beta 2 typically of the final major release we're putting out. And then, of course, every quarter, based on the schedule we have on the Postgres website, we'll put out minor releases, which typically don't require as much work, and they're mostly fixes for back branches and released versions. Sometimes you have security fixes in there. We actually had a big security fix in our most recent one. But it took a long time to kind of get into this process. Originally, we were much more based on releasing when a feature was done. That didn't work too well. We used to release actually when we thought there was enough to make a release. That was kind of our, I don't know what that yardstick was, but we would finish a big thing and okay, we put a big thing out, we're going to now do a release. But that hasn't happened in years. If you look pretty much for the past 15 years, it's pretty much been every year, about 170, 190 features. This one has 205, I think. So it's a little on the high side, but it's impressive for a relational system to be having a cadence of every year to put out that much new material and new features.
Now I'm curious if there's more myths and assumptions that we can test right here while we have Bruce as well.
I mean, we have had security critical releases, but it's been a long time Certainly a couple of years since we've had to push out a critical patch release that, typically it's a case where we've made some critical error in a minor release, and then we have to put out a fix.
That's been my experience as well. So the packagers love that, right? We just put out a minor release.
Yeah, and we have had a couple cases where we've repackaged on a Monday. So I don't remember. I don't even want to talk about which release that was, but we had a case where we put out the tarbles on Sunday. Somebody found a problem on Monday morning, and I think we ended up relabeling the release. I think we actually bumped the number. I don't remember how that worked, but I think it was confusing enough that we basically put out a new minor release on a Monday that we had never even put out the minor for, but we just popped over 2 numbers so that we were sure that all the packagers knew this is the one you're to use, and then put it out. Yeah, exactly. We certainly don't want that. Yeah, that was the issue. Yeah.
Tom, then with work on Postgres 19 already starting in July, does that mean also that your team is then also starting work or meetings around?
Yes, very happy to report. This is probably the second year where we've gotten a little bit ahead of the cast. We had said, okay, 18 is now released. What are we going to do for 19 now? But we're actually actively working on Postgres 19. And we're trying a new concept this year, somewhat as a result of some of the things that were mentioned in the developer conference in May of this year, which, Bruce, I missed having you there. First time probably in a long time you weren't able to go. Congratulations on the marriage of your daughter. But we actually have working groups for each of we have a working group for SQL, we have a working group for infrastructure, a working group for table access methods. These are the patch that's when they've broken this up. So I'm not, they're self-organizing, getting things together, looking for even to involve people, outside of EDB into. And there's a concept that was introduced at the developer thing. We're trying to lead the way, but we have right now, I'm going to say we have over 30 active patches that we're working on to be considered for 19. Some are at various stages. Many of them already been submitted to the community. So I'll go into that thing. Bruce talked about the the life cycle, and I'll talk a little bit how we view things that we're behind the scenes. As we have patches are selected, meaning somebody has said, "Yeah, I'm going to work on this," and has support, and then we say they're proposed, which means that they've been submitted to the list for review, or as a good idea, bad idea, as Bruce said, thumbs up, thumbs down earlier in his talk. And then we'll say they're in development, meaning we're developing something that we hope to, so assuming it's clear the proposed state, we're developing something that we believe we'll be able to then, I guess, to submit it. We put a patch out and submit it. And then the next sign is reviewed, and it can go anywhere between development, reviewed, and proposed over the course of the development cycle Bruce talked about. And then finally it's committed. But those are the stages we view it internally as we're tracking about where our efforts are, whereas things. And, we're also working on other people's patches too. So we try to help, our committers are reviewing theirs and trying to get theirs in as well.
And I assume the other companies are doing something similar, right?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know. I sometimes compare notes when I go to conferences. Well, why do you do this? And how do I do that? And some people, the thing people mostly talk about are meeting times. What time do you meet? We change it every quarter, or, for 5 a.m. to meet with the folks in China or whatever it is, or they get up at 5 a.m. to meet with us.
Because the problem is you plan inside the company and you're only using your own staff to effectively get ideas. And once you get out into the community, that you're now inundated with ideas and inundated with.
Yeah, you want to fail or succeed fast, right? Does this have a chance? Does it have a chance? If it doesn't, let's get on to something. So if it does have a chance, let's see if we can get it down the road.
When you're inside the company, every idea seems like a good idea. Like, nobody wants to sort of say in a meeting, that's a terrible idea. Why would you think that's a good idea? But once you're out in the community, then effectively you're looking at software that's going to be around for another 20 years. It's been around for 39 years now. So people are going to be very critical of it, because a lot of times when people are thinking, they're thinking very short term. They're thinking, oh, hey, I'm going to get this feature in. Everyone's going to pat me on the back. My boss will like me, blah, 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 blah. But once you're in the community, all that fades away. And we're all of a sudden like, all right, is this going to last 20 years? Is this bulletproof? Is there any way this could fail? How is it going to interact with every other little feature that's out there? Did you do the implementation right? Is this the simplest way we can do it? And all of a sudden, it's just a very messy process. A lot of the impetus is on the patch author, and that's just the hot seat that almost you're going to be inundated with ideas, and now you either have to say why the idea is a bad idea, or you have to implement the idea if you want to go forward, and those are really your two choices.
Well, right. I think there's kind of 2 points: the patch author, and then, as I've been recently educated, a lot of the hot seat goes to the committer afterwards. So it's if they once they commit whatever patch they did. So
if they miss, sometimes with the complicated patches, the patch author will implement it, but they won't realize there's this interaction they didn't expect, and then the committer will look at it. They also won't realize that there's this interaction, and then they commit it, and now later on, typically in August, right, or July, or if you're lucky in June, they realize that, hey, there's a problem here, and that's on the patch off. That's on the committer. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's troublesome. Have you seen? I don't know if you've seen the slides from Robert's talk he gave at Dev 2025, but he had people always think of the committer as this guy sitting on the throne with people bringing him things. He says, but what we really feel like, he gave another picture, and there's a guy like holding up a suitcase, walking down the ground, and he goes, "This is what we really feel like, right?" And so there's so much pressure to get things right. So yeah.
I've used this example very, very often, where I'll work on a patch for weeks. I will have gotten through the desirability and the design part, and I'll be implementing it. And I'll work on it for weeks, and I'll finally think, all right, it's been 3 weeks now. I think it's ready, and I don't see anything. I've been going over it. So I finally post the patch, and within an hour, somebody from Brazil or somebody from Germany or somebody from China or whatever will say, this right here is wrong, and this right here, this doesn't make, I don't understand that. And then the variable names here are completely need to be changed. And what about this other interaction? You're thinking, I spent weeks on this, and this took this guy 1 hour, lady, 1 hour.
Yeah, right. Some people are very good at finding other people's problems too. So that we all have our gifts. Yeah. But you know what? One of the things, so I just did this blog about that Floor helped me review, is talking about the rise of Postgres on the Stack Overflow developer survey. So I read that and submitted. Hopefully you see it, and I'll send it to you today. But one of the things it's saying is, one of the reasons I'm going to write this next blog. Why is it? Why is that? And I think one of the reasons is the source code is so clean and so beautiful. Exactly because of the reason you described. That it goes through so much scrutiny.
It's like going to the dentist, right? And then they find a problem, and then they find another problem, and when you're in the chair, it doesn't feel real great. But then after you get home and everything's worn off, and the next day your teeth aren't hurting anymore, and you look at your teeth in the mirror, you're like, oh, it does look better. Yeah, I guess it was good I went through that.
You mentioned the working groups. Is that also just because people need a little bit more support than maybe they'd have in the past?
I think there was a couple of things. One is getting larger. We're getting more people doing it, and then we have more people in more places. So we'll start with the patch authorship. I think I think just as people are new and they get things going, just understanding that this is part of the process. It's okay, not expressing frustration when folks do it. And look, it's we have a patch we were just talking about before we got on this call that got reverted, and we'll talk more about that. You'll do some online counseling, I guess, Floor, for these the people involved, and we'll get at it. We'll go at it again for the next release, and so the problems people mentioned, we'll be proud of it, and we'll figure it out. But over time, with a few getting a number of patches in and having a number of teeth fixed, you realize, okay, this is okay. But it's people who haven't been through that, half a dozen times in releases, it's a little hard the first early on.
The way I understand it is effectively, when you're working on a proprietary piece of software, there's a lot of limitations in terms of how effective you can be in either improving the software, cleaning up stuff, getting rid of technical debt, sort of polish. Yeah, right. When you're in the community, it's almost like we're a magnifying glass where every individual is magnified in their ability to write a patch, find problems in a patch, test a patch. Right. So a lot of the inefficiencies that I think happen in proprietary development just don't happen.
Righty. I think we're almost at the end of the recording, but I wanted to mention some other ways that we're supporting the community, and I would love to hear your response to that as well. Because aside from writing code, we're also very active in the community, as in we're sponsoring a lot of community events. I have some data, so I can share some data. We've sponsored, we're recording this in mid-August, and we've sponsored 22 community events, often as a top-level supporter. We have a lot of community organizers and volunteers in our midst as well. We're involved with 18 different events this year, either as an organizer or volunteer on the talk selection committee or the code of conduct team. We're involved in all kinds of committees on the Postgres Code of Conduct Committee, Diversity Committee, on Postgres US organization. We're involved with developing SQL standards, and we're speaking at a whole ton of events. I mean, Bruce, you know all about this too. You speak at a lot of events as well. At the time of this recording, we have delivered 98 sessions at community events since the start of this year, and we have 47 more planned until the end of the year. We are active in mailing list. Is there anything that I'm forgetting to mention? Any other ways that we're getting involved with the community aside from code?
I think one of the things that I think is equally hard and frequently overlooked, we do the majority of the packaging for PostgreSQL, for the Postgres Global Development Group, I should say. Not they're all the Linux distros create packages, but the Postgres Global Development Group distributes packages as well. And when we do Windows, yes, we do Windows. Some people don't, but we do. And we do the Mac and all the RPMs.
That is huge, because when we started as a community in 1996, one of the things that really held us back was that we had very few large companies supporting us. One of the early ones, I think, was Fujitsu, I think in 1999, and NTT, SRA in that same time period. But at that time, MySQL was a company developing the source code but distributing it as open source, and they had a big marketing budget, and that really hurt us in terms of mind share of how people viewed the project. And I would say EDB was probably one of our first big sort of dedicated companies to kind of come in and say, we want to, not only do we want to support the development process, but we understand that there is a world of marketing out there, a world of interaction with the community that the community is not really going to be able to do, right? You can't, I personally can't fund the 30 events I go to every year. It just, it wouldn't be financially possible for me. So, let alone the others that we do. So, one of the big changes in the past 15 years has been in a conglomeration of companies now, not EDB Plus and a lot of other ones, which are really ready and able to give us that marketing muscle, whether it's right? Whether it's writing blogs, whether it's packaging, whether it's events, whether it's webinars, whether it's being on committees, making conferences, attending conferences, speaking at conferences. These type of things are what people need to really engage with the community on a level that's more than just downloading a piece of software, right? Which is not super exciting. But once they go to these events and once they interact, I think they have a better appreciation of what EDB is and what Postgres is particularly, and how revolutionary it is. And that piece is really important. And I know it's important only because I lived for a large number of years where we did not have it, and some of our less capable competitors did. And it really did hold us back as a project.